Hello, everyone. My name is Arif Islam. I run a blog called agency.managedcoder.com where I share my experience running an agency and how to grow an agency, mostly software development agencies. I also invite guests who share their experience. So today I have a special guest who worked with SJ Innovation over 10 years. Arif Islam is a project manager. He has a lot of experience. So Arif, welcome and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Shahid, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. So, as you rightly mentioned, I started my career with SG Innovation a long way back, as it seems like right now. But right now, I'm working as a project manager for Consumers Energy under IT, Customer Experience and Operations. So, I've moved from New York to Michigan. Life is a little different. So, I think the work is also a little different than what I was used to before. But I think today's topic that you have mentioned about being a project manager and how to work with clients, right? So I'll take some time explaining how to start your relationship with a client, right? I think
Arif, before you start, so like the reason I invited you, keeping in mind that I do talk to a lot of other agency. The term agency is more common in US, but
okay.
when we talk about software development companies, mostly in Bangladesh and India, where they are trying to get clients in USA. So the reason I thought, and we had a discussion earlier also, I thought it would be a good idea that you actually explain from the perspective, from US, what are the expectations? You have dealt with a lot of project coordinator in our company or project manager who are remotely in Bangladesh or India. What are some mistakes they make? And I think you were mentioning some of the points. So let's start with those points you mentioned, and then we can ask further questions.
Yeah, of course, sure. So if a client or agency has reached out to you or your company, that means they want something to be done, right? So that's given. They have a requirement that they want, or that there's a website or a software, a software they want to build, or some bug they want to fix, whatever it is, they have a need, right? And you are the provider. So that's given, right? That they want something and you have something to offer. So I think finding the connection between the two is the most critical part, I feel, right? If you are a service provider, then obviously you provide service just like everyone else. But I think what client wants is what is different in you than others. That's what they look for, right? Regardless of who the client is. So finding that specific thing is not simple, right? It might not be visible on first meeting or second meeting even, right? So you have to give it time. And I think the common mistake that I used to make when I first started my career is try to upsell from the beginning. Right? We'd always want to sell ourselves instead of listening to what client wants. Right? That's what client feels. Okay, this team is too pushy. They are too demanding, and so on. So and that loses the confidence in client on you. Right? So I think the first thing is, of course, try to understand what client wants, and then try to provide value on that. So I think to begin with, first you have to understand what exactly client wants, right? And then how can you add value to that client? Because getting a client is very difficult these days at any given time, right? We know this, that, okay, it's not easy to get a new client. So when you have that client, make sure you keep that client, or your goal should be, how can I add value and how can I keep a long-term relationship with that client? So I would say to begin with, whenever you're interacting with the client, first try to understand what they really want, and then try to see how you can add value. Money will come later.
That's good. It's a good thing. So, like once you build a relationship, that means that include clear communication, listening to them, right? I
Of
think
course.
what I understand over the years that if you are running remote client, right, most of the people who are running their agency from Bangladesh or India or any place in other than US, when they are dealing with a client, how do you communicate with a client, right? What are the medium you think that they should communicate? Where do they start? I mean, communication is quite big, but maybe give us some small tips here that, what did you do and how did you become successful as a project manager?
First thing I would say, the mistake I have made, or mistakes I have made in the beginning of my career, is try to assume what client is saying instead of just listening in to what client is saying, right? So assumption is a no-no, right? Don't assume what client wants, right? So always try to see, what exactly he or she wants and whether you are capable of doing it or not. right? So clear communication has to be verbal. It cannot be via email. I know many of us are hesitant to talk to somebody new, whether it's a client or an agency. We are comfortable typing in an email. But relationship, remember what I said in the beginning, that you have to create a relationship. So relationship does not happen over an email. It has to be verbal, and especially in this COVID situation. And of course, if you are offshore, then you cannot meet face to face. But just like us talking to each other right now, a video call is a must. And I know, Shahid, you do it a lot and you believe in this. I also believe in this, that you have to have um, a video call with your client to start the relationship. Client is to see how serious you are. Client is to see your facial expression, right? Your hand gestures. They add value. So before you being an agency or a project manager, your client is to see you as a person, right? You have to be a human first before a service provider. And that's where you can add value to that.
And I think the second level in STI, you and me practice a lot with Slack communication. If you can onboard them on Slack, right? That is also
Yes,
another way.
of course. Once you have the relationship, then I mean, it's an ongoing relationship. They trust you, right? I think that's the keyword that I was looking for
Hmm.
before. They have to trust you as a
Hmm.
person and then as a project manager. And then once they trust you, it becomes very easy because whatever you say, they believe in you,
Hmm.
right? Then you can do other type of communication, whether it is Slack or Teams, or even a project management tool can be a medium to communicate.
Okay, that's good. So now I have client, whom I listen their requirements, and we are gathering their requirements. We communicate. What is the next step? I mean, you and me talked about setting right expectation. What do you mean by setting right expectation?
Setting expectation means don't overpromise, right? That you don't can't keep, right? Because what happens when you overpromise, then you put a lot of pressure on your team members, right? And with agencies, especially with agencies, was what we have seen often, or what I have done wrong in the beginning of my career, is that setting wrong expectations with the client and then put a lot of pressure in our team members, because we have to understand every day cannot be urgent, right? We cannot have urgent meetings, right? Urgent releases every single week, right? Urgency means once in a blue moon, right? Maybe once in a quarter or twice in a quarter, not every week, not every day. People cannot stay 2 3 hours extra after their shift is over, right? So we have to understand that everybody is human. Remember, we said everybody is human. That doesn't mean not just your client, but your team members are also human. So you have to look at them as human first and then everything. So when you are talking to client, make sure you know your team's velocity, their capability, their capacity, all these things you need to consider. So you as a PM, before you go to meet with a client, you need to do your homework, right? So if you know you have a meeting coming up, you need to give yourself enough time that, okay, what is the agenda, right? What do the client want? What do I have to offer? Do I have the bandwidth? Right? And set expectations accordingly. Because if you set some certain expectations and you cannot live up to that, then you lose confidence from your client, right? And you may end up losing that client after that project. So again, that hampers your long-term relationship. That means there's no connection between you and the client.
Yeah, and I think we fall into that trap always that we overpromise one area. I made so many times that there is a person came in with a website requirements, and then they ask for a tool integration, and we have no idea. Even developers said it, don't take it because it's quite complex. But we say, oh, somehow we will make it happen, and you did not cascade that communication on the first meeting with the client. What happened now? I mean, this is, do you remember, recall many time it happened, and what would be the right approach here? That if you don't know, because 90% you know that project will be done, but 10% you are not sure.
I think, again, setting expectations and being honest, right, with your client, right? In these situations specifically, like you may not have enough resources, right? Somebody might get sick. So you always set the expectation and communicate with your client at all times, right? I know as the innovation, we used to follow Agile, and I'm sure you still do, right? Things can change, right? But always go to your client with facts and a solution, because we as project manager, sometimes we just bring the problem up front without a solution. So as a project manager, what I have learned, the expectation is that uh, you're the negotiator, right? You're the mediator, you're the middle person. So you always go to somebody with a problem statement, but with a potential solution as well. So the client would know that, okay, you know what, you're thinking. Maybe I remember back in the days when you used to say, okay, let's go with WordPress. But when client says, okay, why WordPress? We're like, oh, we only have WordPress developer available at that time, right? So instead, maybe we need to bring something more to the table. Like, hey, it's cost effective, it's easy to manage, right? You don't need our help to, maintain the website, things like that. You give more to it, right? Or you can say, okay, yes, we can do Magento, we can do some other platform, but that will add cost, that will add complexity. You won't be able to make changes on your own, things like that. And client will like you for your honesty. And even if you don't make your sprint 100% success, you tell them the reason why and promise them that, okay, hey, we will make sure to overcome these lackings that we had in this sprint by this, and this. Don't just say, oh, I'm going to fix it. How
No,
are you going to fix it? That's critical. Client needs to see the path, what you are thinking, and align with you.
no,
Because yeah.
that's very good. Like one other part of it, you and me discussed a lot about building the relationship, right? And I can imagine you sitting in somewhere in India or Bangladesh or anywhere in Asia, China, Bhutan, Nepal, but you trying to understand who is that client who lives in New York or California, anywhere. You have no idea. They are in a different culture, religion, and language, right? How do you make connection? What is the first thing people say? Why people in USA ask how is the weather? We had that analogy. You actually took a PDC class, a personal development class in SGI, and since you were leading the team, and I remember you worked on it. How do you, go ahead and tell people about that side of it? How to build relationship on the first call, because it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I try to find a common ground where we both can talk. And actually, at Consumers Energy, it is mandatory actually to first talk 3 minutes, something common, not about project, not about any problem. You have to, right? So even this morning, I was talking to one of our teams that are in Argentina. So I started with congratulating them with the Copa America, right? And they went on for 5 minutes. They went back in 1994 that they won. So see, we were talking from the beginning, even though I don't know him, they don't know me, right? But we were talking. So I found soccer or football as a common ground where we could talk. But I had to know that, okay, they are from Argentina and they love soccer, right? So similarly, we start with weather because there's something common, right? How's your weather? What's going on? But I think the critical point that most of us fail to understand is that the next question after that, or the follow-up conversation, if you just say, how's the weather? He said, yeah, it's nice, and then you just move to work, then that's not it. Right? If you ask me how was my weekend, and if I say, yeah, it was nice and sunny, the follow-up question will be, so did you go out with your family? Did you do a barbecue? Right? Is there anything? Did you go on a vacation? Did you go out of state? So things like that will come in. Just like that, child. If you remember, I took another class about following up with your team members, right? Asking how are you, and he said fine, and then that's it. You don't ask any other questions, and they would know you are fake, right? Just for the sake of saying, you just ask them how they are. But if they say I'm fine, like, hey, how's your weekend? What did you do? Right? How's your kids? Those things add up, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you create the relationship. They know that, okay, you are true, you're not fake, right? And really, you really mean it when you say, how am I doing, or what did I do over the weekend, right? That makes life much more easier. Even to deliver a bad news becomes just a news and not a bad news, because client is at ease and he will be willing to accommodate to anything and everything that you need.
And this is a challenging factor for anyone who is working with client in USA, because this is a different culture here. They don't have soccer, they have American football, and it's very hard, right? So I think some cases, I read many articles that watch movies, right? American movies will give you hints like chit chat what you could do, but it is challenging. What other suggestion? I think you and me read the book Patrick Lynchian is Five Dysfunction of a Team, and I think how to make connection. There are a lot of books, YouTube videos. I think those does help. Anything else comes in your mind that you want to suggest to somebody remotely trying to connect here with the US client?
I think, yeah, you can read books, but I think everybody takes uh, different things from a content, right? What you may take, I may take something else, right? So I think, of course, as a project manager, you always have to be up to date in terms of technology, whatever your team is working on, and you always need to be willing to read. I think you got me into this habit of book reading. I was a article person, right? I would just read like a few lines and think that okay, I knew everything. So I was wrong in that sense. So I think yeah, as you said, Patrick Lencioni. There are so many other writers out there. Just pick one book. I don't want to say any names. Anything leadership, project management, even if you want to do any kind of certifications, they all tell you these few basic things, that you need to communicate, you need to be honest with your client, right? And you need to see everyone as a human being. I mean, I cannot emphasize more than what I'm saying. See everyone as human, and then treat them like a human, and I'm telling you that you will get the same feedback from them, right? And never, don't lie. I use the word overpromise, but another thing that I have seen from many agencies, they lie, right? Don't say you can do something that you know you can, right? Don't set wrong expectation, because see, these, especially American clients, when they go even to talk to somebody from Bangladesh or India, they already think that okay, you don't have all the expertise, right? So you have to win them over in a way, right?
Mhm.
So I think it is very critical that you be honest and represent yourself the best you can. So I think if you're a project manager, you need to practice your sales pitch, right? Try to ask who you are, what your company is, what their value is. I know we struggle to set our values, right? The pillars, the
Mhm.
5 pillars. So you have to believe in it, and you need to represent that, right? Again, human first. When the client comes in, he wants to deal with people, right? He wants somebody who can rely on, right? And setting expectation is also that don't expect your client to come online at 11 p.m. every day, right? Again, from your side also, don't set expectation to your team members that they will be staying till 9 p.m. to join your client's morning meeting. So try to find a common ground, right? A good practice would be give and take, right? One week you ask your client to come at night, the next week you stay late to make sure that okay, you come to your client's morning time. So that is always give and take. I believe is like a relationship of a husband of a wife, or girlfriend boyfriend kind of, right? It's a give
Mhm.
and take relationship, right?
No, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. We ran out of time, Arif. Thank you
Yeah.
for joining in. How can people contact you? Is it LinkedIn the best medium? They can search for your.
Well, yes, LinkedIn would be the best medium. If they have any question, they can leave some lines to me with their queries, questions, concerns, and I'll definitely take my time to respond back to them.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, in details. When I say take my time,
Yeah,
that means in details.
sure, definitely. And I'm looking forward to talk to you more about these topics and project management related. You have a lot of experience, and I'm sure you can help our audience with your expertise. Thank you, Arif.
No, thank you, Shad, for inviting
Okay,
me.
okay.
My
Take
pleasure.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.